And welcome back. This segment of our show is brought to you by Express Frame. In my home, I have part of a stadium bench from the old Foxborough Stadium. I have a kilt from Scotland. I have autographed footballs, jerseys, ball caps, all of them in beautiful, protective shadow boxes put together by Express Frame. The place to turn for any sports fan with memories you want to preserve and protect and display. Express Frame can do it all. You've seen me run their ads on this program for years and years and years, and so many guys on this show have taken their own sports memorabilia and family heirlooms and everything else over there. They do great work. Express Frame, check them out. All right. You've got right here a list of the top 5 coaches in college football today, according to Urban Meyer. He was asked this week his top 5 coaches. There you see them, 2 of them on Tennessee's schedule every year, naturally, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. He's also got Ryan Day from Ohio State as number 5, Lincoln Riley as number 4. He has 3, 4, and 5. He said any of those guys could land at 3, 4, and 5. He can rotate those around. It's the 1 and 2 really are the ones that stand up, set themselves apart. He sees the next 3 as very equal. All right, but here's the thing I thought was more interesting. He was asked if he were to hire a coach, what are the most important criteria in terms of running a good program today? And he has number 1, culture, number 2, recruiting, 3, leadership, 4 is the ability to inspire and motivate, and he specifically talked about looking at the big games, the guys that win the big games. 5, strategy. Okay, I might have strategy a little higher up there because some years you might not have the roster that you want. I would want a guy who could coach me or coach some guys up. That would be my change on his list. Where are you guys? You see this and go, and let's obviously say, he's Urban Meyer. He knows a thing or two. But my guess is if you ask 15 coaches, you'd get 15 different lists. What are your thoughts on his list?
I find it interesting that number 1 on his list, when he left Florida, the culture wasn't very good, was it? My gosh. So maybe he learned from that.
Maybe.
The culture is important. But I wouldn't argue with those 5. I might argue the ranking, yes, of those 5. Boy, I'd come pretty close. Ryan, you might appreciate this. To put in recruiting number 1, I'd have strategy higher, no question about it. Culture is important. I think the ability to inspire and motivate is, I'd have it higher than number 4 on that list. I think there's some coaches that had that ability in big games and their pregame speeches and the preparation like that. I think that can be very important. And I think that was one of the strengths of Urban Meyer, because he had such a great record against his key opponents.
Big games, he was terrific. Yeah.
I actually think 1 and 2 are in the correct order. I definitely can understand the sentiment for recruiting being number 1 because it's hard to win without that. But I've seen so many programs that have the talent, and we've all seen it over the years. Florida's a good example of programs that had talent not live up to it, and part of the problem is the culture. So I think culture being 1 makes sense. Assuming these are in order, he meant for these to be in order, right?
Yes, he ranked them like this.
Yeah, so I've got no problem with that. The one I would maybe take out, because I think it could be sort of almost lumped into ability to inspire and motivate, the leadership part. I would maybe take out leadership.
Those two kind of go together.
And I would maybe put in developing players, just because that, to me, that in addition to recruiting, if you're not making your players better from the time they get there to the time they leave, you're not going to be a great program.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think leadership, you could also put part of that is your culture. I mean, a good leader has good culture. That leadership can be divided. I think you're right. Divide up leadership into those other 2 categories and throw in player development. I think that's a good one. You know more than Urban Meyer. Very good.
Definitely not the case. Shocked that Ryan Day ended up on that list, by the way. I can't believe that he ended up going with his.
It's a surprise Dan Mullen wasn't on there.
Yeah.
It should have been Ryan Day, Dan Mullen, and any of his other assistants.
And there are no great coaches outside of those 5 that are in the college football playoff mix every year.
Well, it's interesting. They also asked him his best 5 of the era, or best 5 still coaching, and he ranked it first by it was all national title winners.
Yeah.
And then he came back, all right, if I was hiring guys today, this is the 5 I would do. And that's what that was. But he had a list that had Ed Orgeron on there. Mack Brown was the 3rd best because it was everyone who's won a national championship, which it's strange that a man who's won a number of national championships would judge it by the number of national championships you have. Not a surprise. It's like Tom Brady saying, I think you should judge it by Super Bowl rings. All right. Ryan, thanks for coming in today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you back here in another few weeks, I'm sure. Jimmy, stick around. Josh Ward comes back out. In case you haven't seen it, Duke University has hired Kara Lawson as their new basketball coach. Who'll have more success? Kelly Harper at Tennessee, Kara Lawson at Duke. Come on back, we'll discuss.